All right, guys, I got another video for you. As promised, I told you guys I was going to be making this video to ask a police officer, interview the police officer. I did ask for some questions. I only received one particular question. So we're going to get started here. We have Darnell Eason here. Um, how you doing, Darnell?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well.
Doing well.
Thanks for
Well,
having me, man. I
yeah,
appreciate it.
no problem, man. It's good to have you here. I just wanted to get ask you questions. Some students are sometimes wondering, things in life about interactions with police officers and all that. So I do have a few questions that I actually made up.
Okay.
Because some students, I didn't actually get any. Hold on a second. Let me put my card over here. Um, some students didn't have any particular questions. I did the 5 hour class yesterday, and I did tell them that I was going to be interviewing a police officer, but nobody
Okay.
really asked questions. I don't know if they're shy or what,
Well, yeah.
So,
I'm
so
thinking they're probably shy, and the issue may be they just really don't know what they want to ask.
yes, yes, yes,
So that's expected. I did
yes. So,
a live for this Uber group, the
hmm,
rideshare group for Long
okay,
Island, and same thing. The administrator of that group asked, their followers, part of that group, if they had any questions that they wanted to ask, and the same thing. Only a
yeah,
handful, wanted, certain questions asked, and then once they saw like the replay of it, then they were
okay,
like, "Oh man, I should have asked that question. Oh man," but
yeah, yeah,
told
yeah,
them invite me back. I have no problem doing it.
yeah, yeah. Just like in my class, during the class that I do, I during some of the videos that I play, I ask them if they have any questions. They don't ask questions. I usually get questions asked during the end of the class.
Right.
So yeah, so let's get started. Can
All
you
right.
tell me a little bit about yourself? And I noticed you're also content creators, which is great, and I guess you're being kind of transparent also.
Yeah.
So, yeah, tell me
Well,
about yourself.
sure
And how did
thing.
you and how did you get started? What made you decide to get started making YouTube videos?
Well, I've been in law enforcement since April of 1996.
Okay.
I started with a public safety department in Nassau County in New York with one of the townships. And I stayed there until about, I'd say, December 2004, which
Okay.
at one, actually after, no, it was December 2004, I was hired by an agency in New York State. It's a state agency. I never say, what agency that is.
Yeah, sure.
Even in my videos, I never say exactly,
Sure. Yeah, same here.
where I work. I
Mm-hmm.
don't need any conflicts of interest out there.
Exactly.
Um, so I have another, God willing, I get to the finish line. I got to stay healthy, maybe another 15 months before I can retire.
There you
But I'm
go.
going to continue doing,
Okay.
this content creation for the YouTube channel.
Good.
And how I really got started doing that YouTube channel is that I kept pulling over people. I kept writing, and I was a very big summons writer, and I
Okay.
just kept writing so many summonses. And one particular thing kept coming up as an excuse. And that excuse was I did not know. And
Okay.
for the viewers out there, if you tell an officer or if you get summoned and you go to court and you say, I did not know, that's not a valid excuse. Denial of
Mm-hmm.
the law or no knowledge of the law is not a valid excuse in any court of law, especially here in New York State. Because as a licensed driver, you are responsible to know the vehicle and traffic law. All right, you're required to know the laws of the state that you're actually driving in. So even if you leave New York and you go to New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, California, you're required to know the laws of the state that you're driving in.
Sure.
So again, the common theme was I did not know. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, man, a lot of people are saying that they did not know. So you know what? I'm going to make sure that that information is out there. So
Sure.
I
Yeah.
just felt comfortable and I felt better because I said, you know what? I'm putting the information out there. So I know it's available. I know people can search if they chose to do so. So that's what I really started doing. is putting the content out there, and it kind of developed into what it is now, because it originally started as a podcast, and I actually plan on restarting the podcast
Oh,
now,
okay.
so
Okay.
I can hit just not just YouTube, but I'll put it on the podcast scene, put it out there so as much people can get that information. And it takes a lot of work, but I'm a one-man show. I do it all, and that's my passion right now, putting that information out there, because I always say, listen, if I can help just one person, then I
Yeah.
did my job.
Yeah. And hopefully it'll make them a better person, with anything with the courts or driving, So that's great that you're doing this.
Yeah, cool.
So I got my questions here on my phone, so
Yeah, no worries. Take your time, man.
alrighty. All right, so I have a nice collection of questions. I actually added another, I think two questions
Yeah, go ahead.
already. Okay, so let me ask you the ones that you know. What happens when a driver gets caught driving with a learner's permit?
Uh, Good question. It actually it doesn't happen to me when I stop a driver. It's happened enough, and the issue is, as you tell your students, you have to have a licensed driver with you
Yes.
in that car.
Mm-hmm.
And some people think, oh, I have a permit, it's okay. It's allowing me, it's permitting me to drive, but that's not the case. So what happens is, and I'm sure it'll come up in some questions later on, but maybe I can build upon it a little bit later on. But it all really depends on your attitude. So
Yeah.
I've stopped plenty of people. Like I said, it doesn't happen a lot, but I have stopped plenty of people, and they present the learner's permit, and I'll say, hey, wait a minute, this is a permit. Where's your license? Oh, I forgot it at home, or I lost it. And I'm like, listen, I'm gonna check. So I'd rather you tell me the truth. And that sets the tone right then and there.
Yeah.
Tell me the truth. Oh, it's at home, or I can't find it. It's in my other wallet, or it's in my other pocketbook. Those seem to be the popular ones. And I'll be like,
Mm-hmm.
all right. I go back, I run that information, and it shows just have a permit. At that point, I'm writing you the summons for operating a motor vehicle without having a license. So that's no different than you not having a permit. If you just jumped in the car and started driving and you got pulled over, it's going to be the same summons. But the issue is, once you get in front of that judge, if you choose to say that you're not guilty, then they're going to do the same thing. After the testimony, the officer testifies first, and then the motorist testifies afterwards. And then the judge makes a decision based on both parties. And then if the
Okay.
judge finds that, what, the officer established his case, which is called prima facie, which we can get into at another time.
Yeah.
So you might want to jot down,
Yeah.
a little note, what is a prima facie case? And I can explain that later on.
Okay.
But once that judge makes that decision, then he's going to look at your driving record. They don't look at the motorist record until after
Mm-hmm.
they have found the motorist guilty. All right. So
Okay.
they don't look at your record when you walk into the room and say, this guy's got, 6 points on their license. I'm going to find him guilty. They don't look at your record at all. Even if they say, all right, not guilty, they don't look at their record. All right. But once the judge finds that motorist guilty, they'll look at the record, and then they'll see, oh, you only have a permit. And then what's going to happen is they're going to set the fine, which minimum I've seen
Mm-hmm.
is $75 plus an $88 New York State surcharge. So you just
Okay.
got to do the math, and
I
that's
was
what your
about to ask you that. Yeah.
would be. So
Okay.
what could happen, and I haven't seen it, is that they'll get penalized. So now you're driving without, a license, only on this permit. They can say now, all right, you can't get your license now for an additional set period of time. So it's never good to drive with just the permit at all, unless you have that licensed driver inside that car. And
Exactly.
then, and I'm sure you've said it, there are
Mm-hmm.
certain criteria that you can and cannot drive. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
your viewers know that you can't drive with a permit within the confines of the city of New York. You can't drive over a bridge. You can't drive through a tunnel. So if
Mm-hmm.
you decide, oh, I want to drive
Parkways.
to
Yeah,
Westchester,
like
you
parkways,
cross the bridge.
roads and parks.
Right,
Also.
parks as
Yep.
well. So
Mm-hmm.
correct. So most people don't know that. So what
Yes.
they'll do is, they'll be going down the Long Island Expressway, going through the Midtown Tunnel,
Mm-hmm.
and they get stopped. And
Yes.
now that officer that might be assigned to that particular location can say, hey, you drove through the tunnel, or you went over the Throgs Neck Bridge, or you went over the George Washington Bridge from
Mm-hmm.
New Jersey, from Fort Lee, into Manhattan. And now they could decide to write you the summons because you
Yeah.
cannot do that with a permit.
And most police officers do know that uh, student drivers are not supposed to do those things.
Believe it or not, most don't.
Oh, most don't. Okay.
Most don't.
Okay.
Because that's just really something you really have to be out there
Yeah.
enforcing the law to
I
know
guess
all these little nuances.
yeah, probably new officers probably don't know or
No, definitely not.
okay. Okay. Alrighty. So next question. Let's see. Oh, by the way, before I forget, let the viewers know your YouTube channel. What's your YouTube channel's name?
Thank you. Appreciate that. My
Yeah.
channel is Cops, Court, and Community. We just did a rebrand when I first started back in 2015. It was
Okay.
Cops, Court, and Coffee. And
Yeah.
again, it originally was a podcast. And the idea was to put the information out so you can listen first thing in the morning as you're having your coffee, you know,
Yeah.
and get that information. But a lot of people kept saying to me, over the years, I never see you talk about coffee. And you never do any
Yeah.
coffee thing. But now,
Yeah.
I have my cup of coffee with me,
Mm-hmm.
and
Okay.
I'll never mention coffee. But
Yeah.
at some point, I said, you know what? That's really not fitting with the model that I want to be a part of. So I dropped the coffee name and focusing more now on community. So what you'll see is now that I'm going out more
Yeah.
instead of doing things inside. I'm going outside into the community. I plan on talking to community leaders, talking to people in general about the community, and just really like saying, hey, listen, let me ask you a question. Did you know or were you aware of this particular law? And just get their insight. Or what do you think of this, cell phone law? Things like that. So I dropped coffee and it
Okay.
is now community. So if you want to search, do a follow of Cops Court and Community, I definitely
Yes.
would appreciate it.
Yes. And guys, I will definitely be putting his YouTube channel name in the comments or in the description so you can click on that and find him. Alrighty, so let's see. Next question. What exactly happens when a person gets caught drunk driving or driving under the influence?
So
What's the
with that,
procedure here?
all right, you're talking what's going to happen from start to finish, or what happens to them.
It's I guess well maybe that's from start to finish. That's
All right, well, start to finish. Listen, again, I could talk. I enjoy talking. I love sharing
okay.
the information because if this video hits home with one person, then you
Mm-hmm.
and I, we did our job, you know?
Yes.
So from start to finish, so, if, and again, I don't condone drinking and driving. I'm sure you don't. It's deadly.
Yep.
Too many lives have been destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
And make a note, and we'll talk about what I call the ripple effect. All right, make a
Okay.
note. We'll talk
Yes.
about it another time. I
Mm-hmm.
figured out something, and
Yeah.
I coined
Yeah.
the phrase ripple effect,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll get into that at another time. It's something. It's interesting.
Okay.
So
Okay.
from start to finish, obviously you went out, you're drinking, you're enjoying yourself, you went over the limit, you shouldn't be getting behind the wheel. You decide you're going to drive anyway instead of having that designated driver, getting an Uber, getting a Lyft, taking a taxi, whatever the case may be. So now you get caught because you're going to commit one of the telltale signs of drunk driving. And I have a video on my channel, how to spot a drunk driver. So if you get
Yeah.
out there and you want to know, oh
I
man,
saw
maybe
that
that
one.
person is drunk,
Yeah.
take a look at that video. I pretty much, lay that stuff out. But you're going to commit one of those things. If not one, if not all, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
commit at least one. And those guys that are out there doing that DWI enforcement, those are the things that they're looking for. And once
Okay.
they stop you, I know right away. I really don't like drunk drivers, but once I approach that window, I know right away. One example, I roll up on this guy, pull him over, and he stops, and he's looking at me, through the driver's window, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, roll the window down. What does he do? He turns the radio down, and now he's looking at me. I'm like, roll
Wow.
the window down. He turns the radio. He's fumbling
Mm-hmm.
with the radio, and right away I said, this guy's no good. So I'm like, all right, open the door. So we open up the door, and right away you could smell the alcohol coming out of the car. Sir, have you been drinking tonight? No. Yes, you have. So what's going
Wow.
to happen is we're going to get them out of the car, and what they're going to go through is a series of tests, which is called that field sobriety test. So now it's just really a coordination test. You see it on TV, you see it in the
Oh
movies.
yeah,
That's
cops.
absolutely true. Everything you
Yeah.
see there is true. And I kind
Mm.
of tell people too, what you see on TV is not accurate. But when you see, yes, on cops or any other movie or TV where they get them out of the car, they have them walk that fine line, the line down the road,
Yeah.
tilt your head back, count, all of that stuff is all a part of the field sobriety test. And once you fail a couple of those things, based on observation, meaning I'm looking at their eyes, I'm seeing if
Mhm.
their eyes are bloodshot, I'm seeing if their eyes are watery. I'm listening for their speech. I'm seeing if their speech is slurred. If they're forgetful. Like, hey, where are you going? I'm going, to work. Well, where do you work? Oh, I work in Manhattan. Well, listen, you're in the southern state. In Unionville, New York. Heading eastbound. Manhattan's the other way. Things like that are telltale signs that this person is intoxicated. And the other tool that officers will use is called a PBAT. It's preliminary breath analysis test. It's just a little thing that on the roadside they'll take and they'll blow into this machine, and it'll give them a preliminary reading of their blood alcohol content. And at that point, once you're over that limit, you're gonna get arrested. So from that point, you're gonna be depending on where you are. Let's just use New York City as an example. You'll be taken to what is called the IDTU, which is the Intoxicated Driver Testing Unit, and that's run by NYPD Highway. And they do have precinct officers, like in a task force or something. I don't know what they call it, but there are some precinct level officers that are trained and certified to run the IDTU. So they may, if highway is unavailable, if it's a busy night, then those guys will come in and they'll run the test for you. Now, once you get into that IDTU room, it's all on camera, it's all recorded. There's a script that has to be read by the technician, which is the officer running the test, and the police officer that made the arrest. So everything is on camera and it's all recorded. And same thing, you go through a series of tests. They'll ask you, do you want to perform these tests? You can say yes, you can say no. Once you say no, that's it. Your license is getting suspended minimum for 1 year. You know that,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
If
Mhm.
your viewers don't know that, if you
Yep.
refuse a DWI test,
Exactly. Yes.
automatic suspension.
Mhm.
Um, so if you think you're beating the system, you're not, because if you get caught driving while your license is suspended due to that refusal, guess what? You get arrested. So you can save the whole headache by not drinking and driving. But anyway,
Yeah.
um, they'll ask you, you're going to perform the tests. You'll perform those tests. Once you take those tests, now they have the big machine, the one that's 100%. I'm going to never say it's 100%, but it's more accurate than the one that's out in the field. So you'll take it and you'll blow into the tube for a certain period of time, and then it's going to register the reading. There's paperwork that has to be done. Once that's done and it's confirmed that you're under the influence, now we go to the precinct of occurrence. So if you are stopped in, I don't know, if you're stopped in, let's just say, Queens
Mhm.
and the 108th precinct, then you go from the 108th precinct, you go to the 112th precinct. That's where the IDTU is. Then you go back to the 108 after the test, and then the process, begins where you have to get fingerprinted, you get your photo, you do the arrest paperwork, which is all computerized. Once that's done, the fingerprints get submitted to Albany, via electronic, and the information will come back and say, all right, you're good to go, meaning that this person has been verified by their fingerprints. And then from that point, you go to wherever you're going, whatever central booking in. And at that point, it's not over. It's really just the beginning for
Yeah.
your
Mhm.
DWI headache, because now you got court dates, lawyers' fees,
Yeah.
fines,
Yeah.
records. It's a mess. It's
Yeah.
just
I
easy.
I
Take
I
take a
actually I actually had a student that was late 50s and before the pandemic hit, and he lost his license because of drunk driving. So he had to
yeah,
start all over again.
yeah.
And he told me he had to pay over $10,000 in lawyer fees,
That's the
fines, all that stuff.
minimum. That's the
Yeah.
minimum.
Yeah, just to get his license back.
That's
So
the minimum.
just the bottom line is just don't do it. I tell students don't drink and drive. Just don't do it.
Yeah, once you get out there, and again, if you decide, all right, I'm 4 months into this, I'm gonna go drive. Don't do it, because if you get caught, you're
Yeah,
gonna get arrested.
yeah.
And
It's,
believe it or not, there have been cases where people have lost their license because of a DWI, and they went out and they did it again.
oh,
That's why
jeez.
I personally think the DWI laws in this state, really in this country, they're not tough
Mhm.
enough. They're not
Yeah,
tough enough.
yeah. Wow.
You said you're going to jail minimum 1 year.
Yeah.
That's the minimum, with no court case or nothing like that. If you tested positive for being, DWI, 1 year minimum. That
Wow.
might help.
Wow. All right. So, all right. Ready for the next question?
Go ahead, man. I'm ready, man.
All right. Let's see. Tell me about stop sign violations. How strict are officers and drivers not making a full stop at a stop sign?
Well,
Are they strict?
again, I was a very big summons rider, and that was really one of the
Okay.
summonses that uh, I don't want to use the word enjoy, that I really enforced a lot, stop
Okay.
sign violations. I don't remember the case, but it was years and years ago where, these kids thought it would be funny to remove a stop sign and it caused an accident. Somebody died. But even if the sign was there and not removed by any malicious intent, running a stop sign could be just as deadly.
Yeah.
You have to pay
Exactly. Yeah.
attention. So, yes, I will enforce it, and I will enforce it. You plead not guilty. We're going to go to court, and I'm going to sustain that summons. I'm going to give my testimony, and I'm going to be on point. All right. My
Mm-hmm.
conviction rate is very, very high. All right.
Okay.
Because I don't just, pick and choose, all these different summonses to write.
Yeah.
I stick with the specifics, and it's about safety. How can I ensure that the motorists in this great state of New York are safe? And I will write those safety sensitive summonses each and every time. So,
Yes.
yes, stop signs are very big, and I will write it. Most don't. If they see, you approach that stop line and you kind of roll just a
Mm-hmm.
little bit and then you proceed, that's not a stop. The law
Yeah.
requires you to come to a full and complete stop,
Exactly.
meaning the wheels of your vehicle must
Mm-hmm.
cease turning. So even if it's brief, you know judges ask all the time, oh, what if they only stop for 2 seconds? I said that's the optimal word, stop. They stop, even if it's
Yeah.
for 1 second. I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking at the wheels, I'm not looking at anything else. I'm looking as you approach. I have you in sight, maybe 10 car lanes, which equates to 100 feet. I'm looking at you 100 feet away, coming up to that stop line, and I'm watching the wheels. And if the wheels don't stop, guess what? I'm gonna pull you over, and I'm gonna stop you. We're gonna have a conversation, and that in turn is probably gonna lead you to receiving a traffic summons for that violation of that 1172A of the New York State VTL.
Mm-hmm.
Just stop. That's it. Just come to a full and complete stop. Those
Yeah.
wheels have to stop turning. So again, some may enforce it. I do enforce it. Some say, all right, that was close enough, but
Mm-hmm.
there is no such thing as close enough.
Okay. Yeah, I actually made a video, guys. So if anyone wants to see that video, stop means stop. I actually have that video up on my channel. You guys can check it out. Let's see. Is it true that a driver can get fined for having one of those air freshener trees hanging on the rear view mirror?
Yes, and if any of your viewers or students care to look it up, that falls under New York State BTL 37530. It's a very small statute. It doesn't give much specifics. It just says, and I'm just really paraphrasing, this isn't verbatim, but it pretty much says that you can't have anything that would obstruct your view through the windshield. So if it's
Okay.
hanging down, all right. So what is that tree? Maybe 2 to 3 inches wide and maybe 4 or 5 inches long. I don't even think it's that long, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it could potentially, block your view for a split second. So I personally, I don't enforce it,
Okay.
but it is a legitimate, summons. If
But
anybody's ever been stopped and issued a summons or just stopped in
yeah.
general for it, yes, it's legit. Three
So if it's
seventy
on
five
your
thirty.
if it's on your mirror on the right side still,
Nothing can be obstructing your
how about
view
those dash
at all.
cams? Dash
Dash
cams
cams,
are
again, Nothing can obstruct your view from
Okay.
the windshield,
But
even
if the
window
dash
tint.
cam is, how about if the dash cam is higher?
Hey, listen, if it's higher and it's made that it's behind the mirror,
Mm-hmm.
I see no problem with that.
Okay.
But if
Okay.
it's below the mirror or if it's off to the side, it really should be in a particular spot where it's
Yeah.
not obstructing your view at all.
Okay. Okay. Because I have dash cams in my mirror. I have
Yeah,
a backup one. I have one in the front, and one is actually the rear view mirror. It's a camera,
right.
so it's
That's the one that straps on over
yeah,
the
yeah,
jacket.
over, yep,
Yeah,
like
that's a
overlays
good
that.
one.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
good one.
Okay, so let's see. Okay, how should a driver behave when pulled over for traffic violation?
Mm. In today's climate, um, I'd say act appropriately. I know we're in, a different
Yes.
day and time,
Uh-huh.
BLM, Black Lives Matter,
Yep.
and
Mm-hmm.
defund the police and all of that stuff. And I've stopped people before, the whole, obviously been on the job for a while, but long before the whole Black Lives Matter thing, before defund the police, I would get the attitude. And why I got the attitude is maybe it was stemming from something that occurred, you know, a couple years ago, and this is the first interaction somebody's had with the police. So it's just like, why are you giving me attitude? I haven't even told you why I stopped you. I could have been telling you, hey, the road is out ahead,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe you got a flat tire, there's something dragging underneath your car. You don't even know. And it kind of makes me a little upset when, I pull somebody over and right away, boom, it goes from 0 to 100. Oh, what the F are you stopping me for? What
Yeah,
the F
yeah.
did I do? You got nothing else better to do? And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
whoa, I didn't even tell you why I stopped you yet. And right away, that just puts the officer, I'm not saying it affects me because I don't take anything personal. I have a job
Yeah,
to do. But I do know of officers that take it personal. And you know what? I'm just writing the ticket. It's not the right thing to do. I tell
yeah,
people, why are you cursing at me? I haven't even told you why I stopped you. Oh, you're just going to write me the summons anyway. You don't know that. You don't know that. I said,
yeah,
let me explain to you why you're being stopped. Again, maybe it's something that you were unaware of. Give me that opportunity to make my decision. I have what they call, um, oh, let me not even get into that. Okay, I'm not. I don't want to get into that. But I have the leeway to say, you know what? I'm going to give you a verbal admonishment. You're just going to get a warning. Hey, listen, all right, maybe you didn't know. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. Just try not to do it again. And they'd be
mm-hmm.
like, oh, wow, you're not going to write me the ticket? No, you didn't even give me the chance. So, how you interact with somebody, with law enforcement as they're pulling you over, it will, and I guarantee you, it will affect how that traffic stop goes with respect to you getting a summons or not. So just
Yeah,
be respectful. I'm not saying that you have to bow down and praise the officer. It doesn't have to be that way.
mm-hmm.
Just, hey, listen, officer, ma'am, sir, I'm unaware why you stopped me. Can you explain to me, what I did? All of these things matter, and as I said earlier, when you lie, it just puts me in a completely different mood. Like, hey, I
Yeah,
saw you on the phone. I wasn't on the phone. Listen, I'm in an unmarked car riding next to you. I'm looking at you. I see you on the phone. Why would you lie? And even then, I won't make the decision to write because you know what? I get it. You're afraid, you were nervous, and I see a lot of nervousness. I see that people, their hands are shaking as they're
yeah,
getting their
yeah,
documents. Those are the people that I know, you know what, you're gonna get a warning because I see it. I see that you made a mistake and you're sorry for making that mistake because I see the nervousness. But aside from that, if you conduct yourself as a gentleman or as a lady during a car stop, I can almost guarantee you'll leave that car stop without a summons. Guarantee you. As
okay,
long as it's nothing, you're doing, 100 miles an hour, down the Taconic Parkway,
yeah,
yeah, you're gonna get that summons. If you're doing 100 miles an hour down the Long Island Expressway, the Bronx
mm-hmm.
River, the FDR, you're doing something blatantly
That's
unsafe.
excessive.
It don't matter how nice
Yeah,
you are, you're gonna
yeah,
get the summons. But
yeah,
just conduct yourself, like, hey, listen, if you were talking to your own mother or your own father, your own sibling, your loved one, your husband, your wife, your brother or sister, just talk to the officer as if you're talking to somebody that you love and care about, and you'll
Yeah.
get the same love back. Guaranteed.
Okay.
Guaranteed.
Okay. What do you think? Now, this one I just wanted to ask because
Yeah, go ahead.
I watch a lot of YouTube videos. What do you think of those cop watcher citizens video recording their interaction with an officer?
Constitutional right.
There you
It's a
go.
constitutional right.
That's what I
So
tell
I
my
have no
students.
problem with it.
Yep.
I don't like the ones, and I watch them as well. And I
Mm-hmm.
watch them also because it makes me a better person. Because
Mm-hmm.
I see what some of these guys in Texas, are doing, which is a News Now Network, I believe. One guy from Texas, I can't remember his name right now, but just Google searching on YouTube or whatever, First Amendment audit. That's what they call them,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
and they listen. Some of these cops, they fall for it, and I'm like, that's not who I am. I want
Mm-hmm.
to make sure I never do that, And it's a tool. It really is a tool for me. It should be a tool for that officer that got involved and got caught up, in that. There's a guy actually in New York. I can't remember his name. You just do First Amendment audit, New York,
Yes.
something cowboy, something. Him,
Okay.
I don't like because I think he baits the officers.
Mm.
He's just not doing enough research for me personally. He does a good job. Let me say that he does a good job. His content is out there, but I think he baits the officers into something that they shouldn't, and they fall for it. And so it is. I'm not trying to blame either one of them, but some do a very good job with their audits, and some
Mm-hmm.
aren't as good. And I'm not saying the guy from New York isn't good, but if you see some of them that are outside of New York, especially like California, they're not as good as
Yeah.
some are conducting those audits. But I'm for them. I'm for them. I'm a big supporter of dash cams. I'm a big supporter of body
Yeah.
cams because you know what? I have a body cam on. You know what? I know I'm not going to say anything that's going to, offend, whoever I'm stopping. And it's just not me anyway. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just very robotic. I say the same thing each and every time, no matter who you are, race, color, creed, sex, it don't matter. I'm saying the same thing. I keep my level very professional. So I tend to not have any, issues out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I support
Okay.
it. I
Okay.
think it's a good tool.
I'm sure there's other cops out there that don't like it at all.
Listen, if you're doing your job, then
Yeah.
what are you worried about?
Yeah.
You can record me
Yep.
all day long. And I remember
Mm-hmm.
once one situation where I stopped this guy because he had, an unrestrained child in the car. And I know he's recording. And anytime I do a car stop, there are two things I say. One, this person is going to try and kill me or harm me. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
approach that car stop with caution. And two, they're recording me. Those are the two things. So that
Okay.
just keeps me on point. So I'm never going to come up to the car and start being very disrespectful. It's never going to happen because I don't
Yeah.
want to be the next YouTube sensation. That's not
Yeah.
going to happen.
Or world star,
So
like
yeah,
they say.
I support it 100%, man.
Okay. Okay. Alrighty. Next question. Have you been crash to a crash scene? Let me start all over. Have you been to crash scenes of drunk drivers? If so, which was the worst one and what did you see?
On the job, no, I've never come across an accident that involved a drunk driver, but I am a part of a local volunteer fire department. I actually served as chief of this department for 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
2000, oh man, 2004 to 2007. I joined this department back in January of 1995, and I've seen a lot of death and a lot of destruction. And I've seen on that side of things a lot
Okay.
of DWI accidents. And the worst that I can recall was Thanksgiving Eve. So no, I don't want to say Thanksgiving Eve. It was probably maybe like 1 o'clock in the morning of Thanksgiving Day, on the southbound highway. I'm not going to specifically say where it was,
Yeah.
but they were heading southbound on a particular highway. And this highway is just a straight shot. It's not like, some of these upstate, even some downstate, parkways that kind of S curve. And, this is a straight shot for like 2 miles. And I think that might be the cause. why a lot of people speed on this particular highway.
Mm-hmm.
But this guy left the roadway and he hit this tree so hard that the car flipped up against the tree. So it hit the tree, flipped up, right, and then wrapped around the tree. So
Wow.
literally, this car had to be peeled away and away. And when I tell you, the driver of this car was smashed against the tree. The worst thing I've seen. The
Wow.
worst. Yeah, and it was determined that he was under the influence, and I don't know, man. That was a bad one, and maybe I'd say a year and a half ago, um, another guy. There was an intersection in a particular town. Not saying where it was, but it's a T intersection. So you come up to the end of the road, and you either have to go left or right. You can't go
Yeah.
straight.
Mm-hmm.
This guy just kept going straight, and of
Wow.
course, right into a tree. But this guy didn't have on no seatbelt. So what happened is that upon the impact, that momentum kept him moving forward. So he just slid right underneath the dash, broke his legs, and I think he was just very likely to have passed away. But luckily, this guy didn't. But that was another bad.
Wow.
But
So the
I've seen a
first
lot. We can
and
have
the
another conversation another time about
yeah.
all the stuff I've seen.
Wow. How about the first driver that you was talking about? Did he pass away or?
Oh, for sure, man,
Yeah,
for
that's what
sure.
I
He
okay.
was, he was. When I tell you flat, he
Mm-hmm.
was flat against the tree.
Oh wow.
And again, we can
So
have another conversation for
so you
another
saw
video.
him. You saw him when
Oh
you
yeah,
arrived and you saw
oh
okay.
yeah, yeah.
Oh
Very
wow.
bad. You didn't even know what kind of car it was.
Wow.
Yeah, very bad.
Alrighty. So let's see. Oh, I was gonna ask you, how did it make you feel when you saw that?
At this point, I'm kind of immune to a lot of these things.
Yeah, I'm sure you get like
So
that a lot. Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
doesn't affect me anymore.
Mm-hmm. Just like when people watch TV and see all this violence, like the kids with the games and all that, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Uh, Tell me about tinted windows. When will a driver get fined for that?
right away. The legal limit. And if your viewers want, I have a video that I just put up not too long ago about how the tent meter works. So that's another
Okay.
good video to check out. I
Okay.
explain everything about it, but the legal percentage in New York State is 70%. Anything below
Okay.
that, and people kind of get it confused. I'll be like, I'll test somebody's window and, I'll tell them, hey, your window's at, 30%. And I say, you're below the state's limit. And they'd be like, oh,
Okay.
I'm fine. No, it's reversed, So if you're above the 70%, you're fine. If you're below 70%, you're not fine.
Okay.
So normally you'll get the 0%. I've seen a few. When I tell you zero, you can't see anything.
Yeah.
The meter just reads a straight zero. Then you'll get, the 20%, you'll get a 35%. And those are normally the numbers you see because that's what the normal tents are that they sell. So
Okay. So
once you go below,
you have a little gadget that you
yeah.
test the windows with?
Yes, it's a meter. I use the Laser Labs TM 2000 unit.
Okay.
And it's just a small compact unit, comes in two pieces. So if I need to test the windshield, some just slide right over the window. But I like this one because it separates in two parts. Because sometimes I'll test the windshield as well. But if
Okay.
you're like at 60%, I'm not going to bother you. If you're at 50%, I'm really not going to bother you. But once you start getting darker than that, then it becomes a safety issue. And like I said before, I really go after the safety, sensitive type things because it could, potentially cause somebody to get hurt.
Yeah. Wow. Can you buy those gadgets like on Amazon or something?
Yeah, you can. Absolutely.
Okay.
You
Okay.
can. And you can actually get training from the company that makes them. They have like a little online course. And, it's just really, making sure that you know how the unit works.
Okay. Okay.
But for me, you have to get trained through the department, and you have to testify in court that you were trained because they just don't want anybody doing it. So you have to be trained by the department as well.
Okay. Alrighty. Next question here. Let's see. Can a driver get ticketed for going 5 miles per hour over the speed limit? A lot of drivers go over the speed limit on the highway. I have never really seen it enforced. I know they are still breaking the law.
Yes, and I don't write speeds. I'm not speed trained. I don't shoot lidar. I don't use radar. I don't do what they call pacing. I do none of that. But in court, you hear a lot of guys that are speed trained, especially highway officers. Certain, obviously New York State troopers, and you hear them testify in court, and the judges always say 1 mile per hour over the speed limit, you're speeding. So that should answer the question.
There you go.
But I can tell you, most people, if it's a small little village, they might write you for 5 over the speed limit,
Hmm.
1 or 2 over. Nobody's really going to bother you. I know certain departments, if you're 10 over the speed limit, they're going to start looking at you. I'm not 100% about the state. I believe like anything above 68, you're asking for trouble.
Yeah. Wow.
But yeah,
Okay.
1 mile per hour, you're breaking the law.
Okay. Um, you heard of the steering wheel spinners on attached on steering wheels? It's like a
Yes.
little. Yeah, you heard of those.
Mhm.
Um, some people think they're illegal. Are they? Are they illegal?
I don't enforce it, so I can't offer any opinion otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
I don't recall ever seeing any statute in the vehicle and traffic law that prohibits it. I'm not saying it's not there, but
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely a question I don't have an answer for you. Now,
Okay.
I've stopped people who are handicapped and they use them to
I was gonna
uh,
mention that.
use
Yes. Mm-hmm.
to operate the vehicle safely. So if there was a law that's out there, I don't know about it, and I think
Okay.
that would be something that needed to be repealed if it does exist.
Okay. Alrighty. So let's see. Spinners. What's your biggest pet peeves on drivers?
I have a couple. Cell phone usage, if you're driving and texting at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
9 people die in this country every single day due to distracted driving. And it's not just specifically cell phone usage, but any distracted driving. You know, 9 people die in this country every single day. That's 9 different families, every single day that are dealing with the death due to distracted driving. And that just goes back to my whole ripple effect, which we can have another
Yeah.
conversation again
Mm-hmm.
another time. I'll explain a little bit about that. But distracted driving, texting while you're driving, and unrestrained children. I don't care who you are. If you're not rushing that child to a hospital, there's no reason why that child should not be restrained. So I'm going to write that summons 100% of the time.
Okay.
That's my biggest pet peeve, unrestrained children.
Okay. All right. Let's see. What if you see a student driver driving in a driving school car and you notice him or her not driving right? Will you pull them over?
Probably not.
Okay.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I know they're learning.
Yeah. I had issues with students, and I was passing by police officers, wasn't pulled over. The
Yeah.
police officer notices that it's a student driver. So,
Yeah, I'm not
yeah.
going to bother them unless it's something egregious and I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
this is definitely unsafe. I
Yeah.
might intervene. I'm not going to write the ticket. I'd probably say to the instructor, hey, listen, they did something that
Yeah.
needs to be addressed. So no,
Yeah.
I wouldn't bother anybody.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Um, let's see. Which fine is the most that drivers get on the road?
Monetary wise,
Yeah.
it depends. It really depends on the driving record of the individual. So the
Okay.
minimum fine would apply with all of the summonses. So if you fail to signal your lane change and you have nothing on your record, you're looking at $138 in the city. Villages are a little bit different. Certain counties are a little bit different, but New York State more so, you will be looking at $138 fine. Now, if you have a bad record, they could set that fine at 100 and then the surcharge. So now you're at 188, but what happens with those things, again, it's your record. But if you look at red light summonses, that's what continues to go up. You run a red light, and I can't recall off the top of my head, but that will definitely increase if you have those violations within a certain period of time, normally within those 18 months. So it's not the right amount, so don't quote me on it. But let's say the first one you get, it's $100, and now you get a second one within 8 months later. Then that 100 now it becomes like 250. And if you get a third one, it just keeps going up to the point where you're going to lose your license.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's probably the heaviest traffic violation is running a red light
Okay.
because it'll go up.
And now that computer system that you have in your car, you can just look up basically a lot of the information about a driver, right? When you look it up.
Yes, pretty much everything. I recall a young lady years ago, many years ago, ran her license and it popped up, that she shouldn't be driving because she was involved in a vehicular homicide. So I
Mm,
asked her about it. I'm like, what happened? She was like, oh, I was driving and, I lost control of the car, I hit a tree, my friend got killed. So all of that
oh,
stuff is on the record. So you can see a lot of stuff.
and that'll stay on their record for like I guess
Yeah,
ever.
it's there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, you kill somebody, yeah, it's there. It's
Yeah.
staying.
It's on your license, driver's license record.
Yeah, in the abstract, yes.
Okay, in the abstract. Yeah. And I have a question here from someone in the comments named Ninth Element. They said hello from Oregon. His question is, what do you fear most about your occupation?
Uh, what I fear most is not returning home
Yeah.
to my family. That's
Mm-hmm.
the biggest thing I fear. And again, early on in the interview, I said I approach these car stops two things. The most important thing is that this person is going to try and kill me or
Mm-hmm.
harm me. So
Yeah.
that's my biggest fear about this occupation, is not returning home to my family. I have an obligation to do my job to protect the residents, of the great state of New York, but I do also have an obligation to come home to my family who I provide for.
Sure. Yeah, my wife's brother, he's a retired police officer, and yeah, we thought about it when he
Best
was.
thing, best
Yeah.
two words in a sentence: retired police officer. Well, three words, right?
I'm sure
Retired
you're
cop,
wait.
retired
I'm
police
sure
officer.
you're waiting for retirement, right?
Yeah, I just got to
Yeah.
stay healthy, man. And like I
Yep.
said, I'm
Yep.
ready to go. Honestly, I'm ready to go.
That's it, man. Just, I guess, pray every night. Pray in the
Every
morning.
night, every
Pray all the
day,
time.
every
Yep.
morning, every night.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly. Because I tell students it's a cruel world and it can
Oh
get
yeah,
very scary out there. Yeah.
yeah.
Alrighty. So thank you for having you, man. And
No man,
I guess,
listen, anytime, man. Invite
yeah.
me back again.
Okay.
This is great. This is
Okay.
great, man. You want to do something again soon?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe after your viewers or your students, see the video. Maybe they say, hey, you know what? I got a
Yeah.
question. We'll do
Yeah.
something again, man. I got no
Okay.
problem at
Okay.
all.
Yeah, so I can't really think of anything right now. Just want to tell my viewers, guys, go ahead and subscribe to what's the channel name again?
Cops, court, and community.
Cops Core and Community. Check them out. I'm gonna drop the link in my description down below. So check them out, guys. I thank you all for
Thank you.
watching. Hopefully, Darnell, we will be doing this again, and
Oh yeah, for
it
sure.
was
Because
it was
there's a
fun,
lot
man.
of things that
Yeah. Okay.
really need to be covered, and I appreciate you having me on.
Sure.
Getting this information out. Again, I tell people if you look at the vehicle and traffic law, the book is this
Yeah.
literally like this thick.
Wow.
The condensed version. So there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot that people don't even know about that I would love
Yeah.
to get out there. Help your students, become better drivers, make it safer out there for me, for you, for your family, for
Yep.
themselves, So
That's
invite
it.
me
Yeah.
back.
Sure.
You know how to reach me, man.
Yep. Yep. Got your number and everything. So awesome. All right, guys. Thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Later.